Hello, everybody. Sheridan Ganger here with HelpShift. I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by my friend, Esteban Kolsky, Principal Analyst at ThinkJar. Welcome, Esteban.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're very excited to have you here. Esteban and I have been discussing this webinar for some weeks now, so we're thrilled to be here today to talk about the social community that converts. Before we get started, though, I just want to cover a couple of logistics. This is a Google Hangout. I am here in San Francisco, and Esteban joins me from a couple hours north in a town near Sacramento. We are encouraging this to be interactive, so please use the Twitter hashtag #AskHelpShift, and we have our experts working in the background to answer all of your questions, and we really encourage collaboration. So definitely find us there. This is being recorded, so if you have a friend or a colleague that perhaps couldn't attend this Google Hangout, we will definitely be sure to send the link as well as the key takeaways to everybody after the event. So I think that covers everything on my end. Esteban, anything to add?
That's just about it. You did it right. Perfect. We're all ready, set to go. Let's go.
Let's go, let's go. All right, so as I said, we're here today to really kind of talk about the social community and the, how it's tied to conversion. But before we get into that, this is part of our 2.0 webinar series. It's around scaling customer support and really the value of community. We hosted the More Summit in March around GDC that really covered these topics that are so important for anybody that's in the mobile space. So this is a continuation of those conversations. So Esteban is an expert on community, so we're excited that he's here to share his expertise and answer some of the questions that I've drafted. So really it starts with, how have communities really evolved past social media collaboration today?
How far do you want to go is the question, right? So here's the thing. Social media is nothing more than a set of channels, right? If you look at it from the perspective that we got a set of social channels and an ability to communicate and collaborate with people from all over the world, that's what social media can see. Communities existed for many years before. They go back to the beginning of humankind. If you think about, even the people in the caves of Altamira, the community was the fire. Everybody gathered around the fire at night, and they traded stories, and they traded, what they did for the day and all that. And that was the beginning of communities. So we had communities forever. The big revolution that social media brought was to leverage the internet as a public open network to connect people from different areas and create new communities. To give you some examples of some data, in 2004, which is right at the beginning of social media, right before we actually got inundated with social media and social networks, each of us belonged on average to 12 communities, of which only 4 were online. As of 2014, each of us belongs to, on average, 48 communities, of which 26 are online. So that's a huge growth, and all that is, yeah, and that's what social media brought the expansion of communities, the explosion, to the point that you can create communities for anything that you want and anything that you need, and it also makes people that are remote accessible. And that, to me, is like the biggest value of the communities, is bringing people that are remote and makes them accessible.
Absolutely. So how would you, I know that we've kind of talked about the definition of community a little bit, but how do you define community today?
To me, communities is basically an aggregation, right? It's where people of keen minds and interests get together to share power and to share knowledge. That's it. That's a very simple definition. So by that definition, though, you can expand it far further than what online communities do. If you think about it, a PTA, a Parent Teachers Association in a school, is a form of community, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about it, if you go to a sporting event, the people that are around you in the sporting event that you're sharing the game with, that's a community. I mean, you're there to share a common interest, which is the game. You're there to share knowledge, potentially, if not the power of being all together and supporting your team. So communities are simply like an aggregation of people of keen mind, keen interest to share power and knowledge.
No, that's a great definition, and something that we're constantly kind of discussing here at HelpShift. So we're so digitally connected in so many different silos, as you said, that we're connected. The average person is connected to 48 kind of unique communities. So how should brands really be thinking about this strategy holistically? Where is the advantage of engaging on a community for a brand?
Here's the interesting thing. The biggest mistake that brands are making is thinking that their customers want to be in a community with them and nobody else. So they're going to go and create all these branded communities where you're supposed to go to. Oh, you like L'Oreal products. My brother-in-law works for them. So come to the L'Oreal community. You don't need to go to the Lancome community, right? You eat McDonald's. Come to the McDonald's community. You need to go to the Burger King community. So the mistake they make is to think that consumers and customers are so simple that they have only one attraction. When in reality, like I said, we belong to 48 different communities, and some of them are competing communities. So the biggest problem that brands have is build these communities with the purpose of bringing people in to talk about their products and their brands and their services and what they offer from their perspective and insert their message. In other words, they just want to get a bunch of people together so they can use their megaphone to tell them what they want to tell them. The opposite side of that, which is the way it should be, is brands are constituted of people, and these people should become members of communities. Not the brand, but the people within. So for example, you work for HelpShift, you have an interest in mobile devices, you have an interest in customer service, you have an interest in San Francisco, you have an interest in dogs, you have an interest in whatever, right? You should be able to collaborate, not as part of HelpShift, but as part of the communities to all these different communities. And when you do that, you're still representing the brand because it's still your heart and your values and what you appreciate and what you advocate for. It's part of what you bring to the community. So the biggest mistake they make is trying to build these communities that are like close communities, branded communities, where I can tell people what I want them to hear, versus just becoming part of the communities and then helping the other customers, become better through the communities.
Great, and that kind of leads me to a little bit of a segue. So you say that you should really put your people before your branded content, right? And encourage the people that represent your brand to engage with the people that are, let's say, tied to your page. So I know that some companies and some brands are a little bit kind of wary to allow that collaboration and allow that people or that person within their community to engage without any sort of training. So how should brands kind of look beyond that and just give the power to their people?
Why would you have to train them? I mean, you don't trust that your people know how to talk to other people, or you just want to train them on the message? If you want to train them on the message, you're doing everything that's wrong. Just directing it to the consumer. I mean, I understand compliance, right? You work for a financial institution. You cannot go on a community and identify yourself as a worker for a specific financial institution, because then the problem, you're representing the institution. That's fine. I understand that. Very few other places where it happens, in government, financial institutions, in a few educational places. But for the most part, people are people. They show up there as members of the community, not as representatives of the company. So, I mean, why would you need to train somebody? The understanding is we belong to 48 different communities. 26 of them are online. We know how to act online. We know how to act in communities. We know what to say, how to support them. We know what we bring the value. We know what our value is. We know what our subject matter expertise is, and that's what we bring. And guess what? Here's the funny thing. Communities have a way of self-policing, okay? Yep. If they want to know who you are, they'll know who you are. If they want to know that I work for a bank or a government or whatever, they'll know that. But that doesn't matter, because as long as you actually represent, bring the value that you can through the knowledge that you have, that's what the community is seeking. They're not seeking to entrap you to become, we're going to entrap the person for bank of whatever to make sure that the bank listens to us. They're just trying to get information and share information. Remember, the community is about sharing knowledge. It's not about entrapping and making brands look bad.
Absolutely, and really, you shouldn't gate that community. As you said, everybody provides a little bit of a different insight, a little bit of different perspective that really sparks true collaboration. So how should companies really be thinking more about this shift to community rather than pushing a bunch of content onto social media?
It's a question of realizing that the world has changed from the traditional outbound to a less traditional inbound model, right? In the outbound model, you're the one who has the message and you propagate it to the world, and the world needs to listen to your message. In the inbound model, the message comes to you, and the message comes from the community. So when you actually accept that concept, what you're going to do is, instead of actually pushing your message out, you're going to be educating the community through different ways to become the advocates for your message, because they're going to be that anyways, whether you want it or not. So might as well educate it. So you change the way that you approach it. It's not about oh, here's my message, hear what I have to say. It's more about hey, you know what, let's have a conversation about topic X. Here's some information that like, you know, I put together. Bring your information, bring your knowledge, let's put it all together. Let's come up with like, you know, better ideas, better concepts, better products, better services, whatever. And then like, you know, go from there. That's what the community is for.
Great. And before we get in kind of the infrastructure part, if, as you said, 48 communities, how does one community kind of stand out from another? Kind of like what are the best practices there to actually really build a truly engaged community?
How does one community stand out from the next one is by the value of the participants. So I mean, you want to have a valuable community, then provide valuable content that the community can gather around. You know, remember the original communities, right? These fires in the caves of Altamira, they were about trading stories. They weren't about who was there and the quality of the fire or how hot the fire was or anything like that. It was about the value of the stories. So contribute stories, contribute your people as storytellers, contribute your people as like knowledge makers, contribute the stories to the community, and then see how the conversations evolve. See how the communities like get enriched by that. The communities with the better content are the most valuable. And how do you do that? I mean, you know what? I mean, if you're a brand and you really want to expand the conversation around your topics of interest, whatever those topics may be, just create content, valuable content. Not fluffy white papers written by thought leaders like myself, but valuable content, stuff that people can like look at and like think about and discuss and come up with new ideas and deliver new insights and things like that. That's what you should be doing as a brand, not like worrying whether your community has an orange or a green logo here or there, and how many community managers you can hire, and where do these people go, and like how do you recruit more people, whatever. People, I mean, naturally, we go to communities where the value is already established, right? And if we find a small community and it happens to be a community with like quality participants, we'll make it valuable. It's all about getting like things done the right way. It's about finding the value and delivering the value.
Yeah. So let's take a step back and talk about infrastructure. Where should companies really start kind of thinking about community kind of before they launch into community, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, so the biggest problem is like, companies, brands, companies, organizations, whatever, they think that you the customer need a community established before you can join it. And that's one of the biggest mistakes, right? I mean, communities can be created without the participation of the company. The company doesn't really need to be there to create the community. If I want to talk about old cars, I will find Google groups. I participated in quite a few communities that happen through Google groups, some of them through Yahoo groups. In the old days, we had AOL chat rooms, and before that, we had a CompuServe, and we had all these things. So people find a way to aggregate when they want to share the knowledge and the power, and like become better with each other, better known, and share the information. So the communities will exist whether you create them or not. If you as a brand want to participate, you have two options. You can build a community, which you have to populate with community managers to help the community remain active and healthy, and like not to censor the information, not to make sure that your message gets through, but to like make sure the community continues to grow and do everything that it needs to do. Or two, forget about that and just find the communities that are talking about your products, your services, or whatever, and like participate or even grow them using third-party community players. I mean, I mentioned Google and Yahoo. There's a million more that you can do. There's offline like Meetup that are offline online. There's online only like Google and Yahoo. There's ways to do it. I mean, there's so many ways to do it that it's not a question of like how, as much as like make the decision that you need to do it and like get into it and do things the right way.
Great. So that brings something up in my mind. So you're saying that it's not necessarily up to a brand to create a community if people are already talking about you, and you need to kind of go in and collaborate on those conversations. So how should companies or brands identify those communities, right? I mean, is there some sort of secret sauce to it rather than just going to Google and kind of seeing what's out there? Do you have any kind of tips and tricks there?
Well, you know my secret. It's Google. Google's what we all do to start. I mean, we open a browser, we go to Google. What, 20% of people go to Bing? Fine, go to Bing if you want to. I don't like it, but it's for some people it's better. So go to Google, go to Bing, like search for what you're looking for, and the communities will show up. You'll find them. guess what? If there's none, then you can build them. Then you can actually start thinking like, how am I going to do this? If you really have such a need to create your own branded community, to distribute the message to your customers and make sure they work where you want them to work, blah, 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 blah. There's software for that as well. There's Good Satisfaction and Lithium and Jive and Enterprise Hive and like, there's a gazillion offers out there if you need to do it that way. But the question is not about the community, as far as the technology and where it lives and what it does, as much as the content of the community. That's the key lesson here. I mean, communities are about content and knowledge, and not about just, what's the best software you can use to do it.
Yeah, good friend of mine, Jay Bear, always says content is king. So, that's something that we definitely embrace at HelpShift, and everybody on the call should definitely be thinking about these tips that Esteban is giving. So we talk a lot about collaboration, sharing content, engaging on that content, but people still want to kind of stand out as an individual. So with so much noise and so many communities out there, how can an individual really maintain kind of that influential reputation as a thought leader or a thought contributor?
Well, so here's a funny thing. So the old model, right? It was like 99-1. I mean, 90 people that are lurkers, 90% of people are lurkers, 9% are contributors, and 1% are super users, right? But in the old days, and I'm talking like, 10, 15 years ago, that 1% were the only ones who wanted to be known in the communities, right? However, that ratio changed dramatically. And now we're looking at something like, 70-20-10, and in some cases even less than that, like, 60-30-10. Where 10% of people want to be super users. And, if you want to be a super user, if you want to be known, if you want to be like, recognized for the value that you provide, all these things, you can get them really easy. All you have to do is like, find the right community. And, the fact that each of us belong on average to 48 communities means that we belong to more than one for any one thing, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're interested, I mean, I have no interest. I'm an analyst. All I do is like travel and work. I'm a poor analyst. But if you have any interest, you're interested in dogs or like, iPads or in cars or old cars or bikes or whatever, chances are that you already found 2 or 3 communities where like, you find quality people that are like you. Remember, keen mind, keen spirit, right? People that are like you is the key to find in the right community. And once you're there, you start contributing. And if you're in the 10% that wants to be super users, then guess what? You're going to find a way to like, make your contributions better heard, better understood. You're going to become you get a way to gain some power and some notoriety and some reputation. And that reputation is going to help you grow within that community. And then you can become the most reputable person in the community if that's what you're looking for. However, if you're the 20% that just wants to be like, a user of the community, you're just going to be the one voting the other 10% up. You're going to be the one saying, hey, that's a good answer. Or oh, you should talk to this guy. He really knows what he's talking about. I feel the 70% that are the lurkers, they don't care about being known. They just want to find the answers what they need or the information they need or just listen and learn. I mean, there's different reasons to be a lurker, but it's just, there's a very small group of people that want to be the super users, the recognized, the empowered. And for those, there's the reason you get a community tool to establish your own community within your organization is because if you want to find those people and turn them into advocates, then you need a gamification tool. You need something that would actually enable you to change those behaviors so you can entice them and reward them with the whatever it is, badges, early access to product, recognition, honorary title, whatever it may be. In the old days in CompuServe, right? If you were good enough, you would be made CompuServe moderator. And I was a moderator for a couple of things. In AOL chat rooms, same thing. You could be the moderator. You create large chat rooms and so forth. So it's a question of just letting the people bubble up that you want to be there. And if you're the brand, begin to recognize them, begin to embrace them. These are your influencers, your advocates, the people you need to find and embrace and make them, help them become your mouthpiece.
Yeah, and something just kind of clarified there. It's not necessarily somebody at your company, right? Your employee can be a great net promoter, a great advocate, right? By sharing the blogs that the brand's producing or the video that was taken at the last company philanthropy event. But really, you can also look to the people that are using your product, right? That are saying how great it is. You need to be thinking about thanking them, rewarding them, showcasing them. And I think that's sometimes where brands kind of are not aligned, right? It's not just about your people that are work for your company, but it's also about the people that are embracing your company and embracing your product. You really need to, as you said, help them bubble to the top, right?
You do, and you work with a company before that would like focus explicitly on how to identify and make people advocates, right? I mean, so you understand this as well as I do, if not better than I do. I mean, it's about finding the ways to reward them, and like each person will have different needs and different desires and different needs for recognition. Some people want something that will lead them to like financial gain. So LinkedIn communities are probably the best place to go there. You just go identify yourself as a leader or an expert, and you babble about whatever the heck you want to talk about, and people say, "Oh my God, you're so smart," and then they'll hire you, and then you make fame and fortune, write books and all that stuff. And then if not, if you just want to be like recognized, you go to a branded community. Companies, establish the communities for the purpose of finding the influencers and the people who want to be recognized. And then you say, oh, you're my most knowledgeable person on the aspect of like what is it, Swords or Carvana? I don't know any of those online games, but one of those online games, it's like you're the most knowledgeable. You get a level 70 or level 90 or level whatever it is. It's just people will bubble up because they want the recognition, and that's basically it. It's like as a brand, you need to be alert, looking for those advocates, for influencers, those champions, and then like embrace them and bring them in, and like help them by educating them, giving them your information, your content, your message, whatever you want them to use, and not as a way of rewarding them, but as a way of like creating more empowered community users to strengthen the value of the community.
Yeah. That's great insight there, Esteban. So we've kind of touched about like we've talked about this before in our conversations, like the modern customer, right? They're informed, they're smart, they're talkative, they're active. So how can a brand kind of take that group of people and not just leverage them, but really uncover what they want out of community, right? Because that's kind of the disconnect that a lot of brands are suffering with today is how can I uncover what my community, my followers, my people, my customers, my prospects want out of community? Where do they start?
So let me ask you a question. Do you ever go to lunch with a group of friends?
When I have time, yes.
Or dinner or whatever. You go out with a group of friends once in a while, right?
Yes.
So how do you uncover what they want?
I ask them what they feel like that day.
And then you listen, right?
Yep.
Why would it be different? what makes a community different?
The simplified answer, yeah.
It's exactly the same. I mean, people go to a community because they want to learn, or they want to speak. Either way, it's just like you go there and find their roles, and then you do it. There's hundreds of tools that would allow you to bring community content into the organization and do anything that you want. You want to generate ideas through the community? Fine, you can take the ideas, vote them in, invite people from that side to work on the ideas, create new products from that. You want to get feedback? No problem. There's products for that as well. Do you want to just listen and see what they're saying? You can do that too. You want to solve problems to the community in a support community? You can do that too. It all comes down to the purpose that you have for the community. And if you have no purpose for the community, just want to create the community, then listen and you'll find out what you need to do. You listen and you'll know if your customers want you to create like a new product, your customers want you to like build a new service, your customers want you to fix something, your customers want you to do something different. I mean, same that we do when we get together with friends, which by the way, when you get together with a good group of friends, that's a community. That's an ad hoc community. You get together for a specific purpose, a specific time, specific reason. That's a community. Same thing that we do there. It's the same thing that brands should do in like in traditional online communities.
Absolutely. And what really resonated with that answer that, speaks the HelpShift language is the value of feedback, right? Like that at the end of the day is the most important piece of the puzzle that a brand needs, is that feedback loop, right? Like listening to what your customers want, what your prospects want. That's part of the service that we offer in terms of our mobile app solution, right? Is to be able to gather that feedback within app for your customers to really deflect negative reviews. And the same can be tied to community, right? Listen to that feedback so that people don't either just go to your social media channels and get angry. It's so valuable to take a minute. I think everybody's running at 1,000,000 miles an hour trying to push so much content onto their channels, onto their communities, that they really forget to just sit back and listen. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons learned with kind of this information that you've been sharing. So what are the next steps? What's next for community? What do you think?
So and thanks for the shameless plug. I appreciate that very much. Just want to let it be known that it was her, not me, who said that, because I don't endorse a specific product for anything. So what's next for communities? It all depends on how far you want to go. I mean, do you want to go to the point that we're all implanted with chips in our brains, and communities happen, without our knowledge directly based on what our brain craves and needs and things? We can go there. But honestly, what's next for communities isn't that it happened in the last, what is it, like 65,000 years that we've been alive as a species. I mean, we're aggregating communities for a specific purpose, and that's not going to change. It's about knowledge. It's about power. Nothing has changed in 65,000 years. I doubt very much that something will change. If you subscribe to the theory that computers will take over, hopefully after they do and they eliminate us all, they still continue to aggregate in communities of computers. If you don't subscribe to the theory and you think that we're going to rule forever and ever, then communities will continue. We'll just find different ways to communicate. Like we use social networks to communicate better across distances and across geographies, and we'll incorporate whatever the next thing may be to add value to the communities and add more value, knowledge, and power to the communities. But I don't see anything changing. I mean, the problem is when we talk about communities, instead of thinking this is something that has been around forever and how can we actually adapt our business to make better use of that, brands think, oh, this is an aggregation of people that I need to go and sell something to. So how do I do that? So change the mentality about the community, because the same communities that you belong to as a human being are the communities that your customers belong to, and the same purpose that you belong to a community your customers have. They don't go there to make it easy for you to sell and to push your message. They go there because they want to aggregate. That's what you need to do. And that's what's going to continue to be, hopefully for the next 65,000 years, although I won't be here for most of it.
Well, great, Esteban. This brings us to our half-hour mark, but I just want to say thank you so much for this valuable insight. I know it's helpful for me as as a marketer to start thinking about communities and how I can evolve our community. I think everybody on the line definitely, we're probably jotting down notes in terms of takeaways. So before we close, is there any last thoughts that you can share with our audience today, about kind of taking their community to the next level and really kind of valuing this as a brand asset?
It's not that hard. Just stop overthinking it.
Okay.
That's it. That's my biggest piece of advice for people who want to start communities. Don't overthink it. You cannot overthink it. It's not about the technology. It's not about the community managers. It's not about anything else. Just that, identify where you can provide value to your communities, become part of the communities, and provide value to the communities, and then you'll get value in return. It's not that hard.
Awesome. Again, that's probably the message of the day. It's not that hard. Don't overthink it. Listen to your communities and go from there. So Esteban, thank you so much for joining. Next week, I'll be hosting David Tamayo from Scopely, and we are going to be shifting back to the avenue of customer support and scaling an organization. So Esteban, thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you in San Francisco next time that you're in town.
More than happy to do that. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.